If the Packers don't win the Super Bowl this year, it won't be the end of this team's window, but there's still plenty on the line for a host of Packers players and coaches.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. The Green Bay Packers would love to win the Super Bowl this year, but if they don't, it's not going to be the end of the Jordan Love window here to win a Super Bowl. This team has the talent, whether it's this year, next year, the year after that, to go chase a Super Bowl. But if there are certain players who don't perform or who do perform, there's a lot here for them. And I want to start this on offense, where I feel like everyone wants to start everything, with Rasheed Walker. And the reason I want to do that is because if he has a good season, if he wins that job outright and has a good season, I assume he's going to get $20+ million a year, either from Green Bay or someone else. Now, if he plays and starts 17 games as the preferred starter, if he wins a decisive training camp battle with Jordan Morgan, I kind of don't know what the Packers do other than say, hey, Jordan Morgan, you figure this out with Shawn Ryan, and then you go from there. And maybe at the end of next year, or maybe even at the end of this year, you consider moving Zach Tom from right tackle inside to center, and you've got Anthony Belton there to come in and play right tackle. But if Rasheed Walker has a good season, takes a step forward, he was a solid NFL left tackle last year. If he does that again, he's going to get 18, 19, 20+ million dollars from Green Bay or someone else. I don't know that anyone else has that kind of money on the table. Like if Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson goes out and has a nice year, a solid step-up year, Romeo Doubs not getting $20 million. Romeo Doubs could lead the Packers in touchdowns, receptions, yards. He's not getting $20 million on the open market. No way. He's not getting $20 million from the Green Bay Packers. No way. It's just not happening. Rasheed Walker has a legit $20 million on the table if he comes out and has a good season. And if he loses the job to Jordan Morgan, you got a lot of big questions here. Now, we just saw the Chiefs pay a backup tackle a lot of money. A lot of money. Everyone needs offensive linemen. And so from that perspective, I would say the downside is pretty low, barring a catastrophic injury. But the upside is incredible. Incredible. And I don't know where it puts the Packers. If he comes out, beats out Jordan Morgan decisively, and shows, hey, look, I am a bona fide above average starting left tackle in the NFL. I just don't know how you let that guy go, because if he decisively beats out Jordan Morgan, then you don't have a replacement for him that you feel like can play close to his level. Now, that does build in here that I think if it is close in training camp, Jordan Morgan will be given every opportunity to at least rotate and play to that level, given opportunities to win that job at every turn. We've talked about the synergy here between the front office and the coaching staff. This is another great example of at least that opportunity. But that is directly related to another guy who's got a ton on the line, and that's Shawn Ryan. We saw what Aaron Banks just got paid. Starting guards in the NFL. I mean, John Runyon just got 3 for 30 or whatever it was. Shawn Ryan is in a position where, let's say, Jordan Morgan does win the left tackle job, and Shawn Ryan wins the right guard job. He's looking at $15, $18 million a year. Probably not in Green Bay, but someone is going to give him a lot of money. And the Packers consistently attract other teams going, hey, we want a piece of that. We know that they can draft and develop offensive linemen. Let's get in on that. It took Josh Myers being pretty bad to get the league minimum to go play in New York or whatever it was. Shawn Ryan can make $15, $18 million. Like, he can get the Aaron Banks deal in a year if he goes out and has a nice season. And then that's not that big a deal for the Packers because Anthony Belton is going to compete, I think, at right tackle. Let's say he doesn't win it. Do they really even want to consider moving him to guard? Maybe they do. Maybe they just give him this season to then become a right side swing offensive lineman. I kind of like that, like give him some shots at guard. But he doesn't need to compete with Shawn Ryan directly because Shawn Ryan's probably going to be out of here. They're just not going to pay all these guys. It is interesting to wonder what the situation could be with Zach Tom. Would he take a lower market deal to be a center? If they say, hey, you're going to be the starting center in a year, if they don't do it now, maybe they have to consider something like that. But the Packers are in the disadvantageous position of him going into free agency and being able to dictate some terms here. You're not going to tag an interior offensive lineman, right? So what exactly is going to happen there? This offensive line, even if you're not an offensive line buff, and look, I'm not going to, this is why I have smart people like Joe Thomas on the show to tell me about offensive line. I have knowledge to a point, but I hope I know my strengths and weaknesses here. That's not one of the strengths. Although I will say, when it comes to Packers offensive linemen, I have it pretty dialed on what they're looking for and the kinds of players that they generally like. We have been very good on this show of predicting the kinds of players that they're interested in. I don't know what to make of Romeo Doubs because I don't know that the money is out there for him no matter what, because I just don't know that the opportunities are going to be there this year. I don't know that he has a lot to prove. Because Matthew Golden is going to get a lot of opportunities. Dontavian Wicks is going to get a lot of opportunities. Savion Williams is going to get a lot of opportunities. Tucker Kraft is still going to get a lot of targets. Luke Musgrave is still going to get a lot of targets. I think Romeo Doubs is still going to get, upwards of 60 or 70 targets this season. But is that enough to justify someone saying, here's $15 million? I don't know about that. That's why I think Shawn Ryan's upside here. If Shawn Ryan wins the training camp battle decisively and then has a good season, takes a step forward from where he was last year, a solid player, there is a lot of money to be made. It's just probably not in Green Bay. I think it is probably just over for Romeo Doubs in Green Bay. So that's why I don't think there's a lot on the line here. Christian Watson, I think either way, there's a chance he comes back in Green Bay, 1 year prove it kind of deal. Hey, here's one more opportunity to come in and see what you got and then move forward with it. They still really, really like Christian Watson. Now, one player that I want to add here that is not a financial upside, I think there is a lot to prove for Matthew Golden. The first round receiver in over 20 years in Green Bay, a position where all of us, all the content creators and fans are going, they need a guy. They need a dude. Can you be that right away for Green Bay? I don't know. But there's a lot of pressure on him to perform right now, right away. And if he can do it, he can be a conquering hero in Green Bay. No doubt about that. But If he can't, I mean, it is going to be devastating for the fan base. And that's not fair. It's not fair to him, but that's true. And we have to remember what I say all the time here. And that is most rookies are bad. Even if they turn out to be good players, most rookies are bad. Remember that when dealing with Matthew Golden. I know the pressure is going to be on him, but just remember, most rookies are bad. Let's switch to the other side of the ball, defense. We'll do that next on Locked On Packers. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I mean, listen, you can combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds, hit a same-game parlay, juice those odds, and really make some money. Plus, how about $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement if that first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Defensively, no one has more on the line than Jeff Hafley. Not because he's going to get fired if he doesn't perform, but because if this defense follows up on what it did last year, if it improves off of what it did last year, Jeff Hafley is going to be in line for a head coaching job. He is too impressive in the room, too charismatic, too loquacious, too impressive, hearing him talk football, to not seduce an owner into saying, I'm going to give this guy a shot. And guess what? I think it would be a smart thing. I think he's a really, really good coach. I think he does an excellent job of manufacturing what his players lack. I think he does a great job of communicating with them, getting them to play fast within a system, getting them to buy in. I mean, to do it in a year. I mean, I know a lot of young players. Evan Williams is a rookie. Javon Bullard is a rookie. Adrian Cooper is a rookie. Jair Alexander seemed bought in from the start. Keyshawn Nixon seemed bought in from the start. Xavier McKinney bought in from the start. Kenny Clark thought it would take some time, but still seemed to be bought in from the start. That's not an easy feat to accomplish for anybody. And so if he can do it again and take them to the next step, take this from a top 10 defense to a top 5 defense. And look, defensive performance is not sticky. This is not a year-to-year thing. It is very difficult to maintain defensive performance. You have to add to your defense usually. You have to get a little bit lucky with injuries. You have to get lucky with schedule. This is going to be a tough year for the Packers to have an awesome defense. But this is why you have something like DVOA, because you adjust for schedule. The Lions are still going to have a really good offense. You're still going to play the Eagles. You've still got plenty of teams in the AFC North that can score points depending on if Aaron Rodgers is there or not. I mean, we're not even going to talk about that part. So Jeff Hafley has plenty of talent on this roster. It seems like, TBD and what's happening with Jair Alexander, it seems like he's going to stay. So he has everything in front of him to earn an opportunity at a head coaching job. Is there more for him to give? We'll see. We'll see. But if he does, if they take a step forward, I think there's a head coaching job waiting for him. And the Packers are going to have a succession plan here. They're going to have, whether it's Derek Ainsley or someone that they brought in over the course of the last few off seasons. They're going to need some recruits here. They're going to need a succession plan in a hurry. I think defensively, as I think about this, there's 2 players also that come to mind because they could just be gone and they could not be making nearly as much money as they could have if they had good seasons. That's Kenny Clark and Quay Walker. Quay Walker had his fifth-year option declined. Brian Gutekunst made it seem like they were going to put together a long-term deal here, or at least a medium-term deal. We have not seen one of those as of yet. Quay Walker playing his best football in the second half of last year. How much of that can translate moving forward? If I'm the Packers, I am happy, more than happy to let him go prove it. Play 8 games, 10 games, 12 games at the level that you played the last 6-8 games in 2024, and you can earn an extension. Because, look, he's a first-round pick. He's going to get every opportunity to prove that he is the talent that the Packers front office already believed him to be. Whether or not I believe that is immaterial here, because I'm not making that decision. But if Edgerrin Cooper is there too, and even if it is the case that Edgerrin Cooper makes Quay Walker better, Edgerrin Cooper is there and is on the second year of a rookie contract. And so if you're going to pay Quay Walker to play with Edgerrin Cooper, it makes sense, because we know Edgerrin Cooper is going to be there for at least 2 more years. And if he continues to be the player that he's been, or at least certainly the trajectory where he's headed, we're talking about an all-pro caliber player, not hyperbole. That is how good Edgerrin Cooper can be. And so if you look at this and you go, well, Quay Walker playing next to Edgerrin Cooper is X. This goes back to our quarterback conversation from the other day. It doesn't matter what they are in a vacuum. They don't play in a vacuum. They play on your team. So if you're the Green Bay Packers, you're sitting there going, well, Quay Walker plays next to Edgerrin Cooper for us. Now, it is worth asking, like, what is the value of a replacement level player next to Edgerrin Cooper, because Edgerrin Cooper is that good. But if Quay Walker is going to give you high level performance, you are then taking a risk that someone else can come in and give you that. Now, what is that worth to you? I think that's a very tricky question for Quay Walker right now, but if you go and you ball out, there's no tricky questions to be asked. Similar with Kenny Clark, although he's under contract. If he goes out and plays like 2023 Kenny Clark, he's going to keep playing on this contract. It's a lot of money on the cap the next 2 years for Kenny Clark. They're going to need, the Packers, to spread some of that money out. Can they do that? Well, only if Kenny Clark plays well enough to deserve a chance to be on the roster in 2026. Now, I think the most likely outcome here is that he plays in 2026 regardless, and then they move on. You move some money forward, and then you move on after 2026 if he's not playing to the level. But we just saw a year ago Kenny Clark being awesome. He's moving back to a more natural, I think, nose tackle position. At least that's what it seems like he's going to do. The Packers didn't really bring anyone else in of note. They have, the late round picks that they bring in. You bring in a 6th round pick and an undrafted free agent to come and play nose tackle. I don't know that that's enough to make you think Kenny Clark is not going to play nose tackle at least a lot on early downs. They may play no nose tackles on 3rd down. It may just be a pair of 3 techniques. He gets to keep earning this money if he plays well. If he doesn't, he's going to get cut, and the contract is not going to be anywhere near what he is currently on, given age, given health, given production, because the last 2 years, if he gets cut, it will be the case that for 2 years in a row, he is a declining interior defensive lineman past his 30s. Those guys tend not to get paid. So there's a lot on the line here for Kenny Clark. If he, turns back the clock, so to speak, he's got a chance to be a little bit of a hero in Green Bay in that, he's been with this program, with the Green Bay Packers, going back to, 2016 when they made the run the table run. We're talking about a decade as a Packer. Multiple deep playoff runs. This is someone who's going to probably go into the Packers Hall of Fame if he plays another year or two at a high level in Green Bay. That's not nothing. We're talking about going into the Hall of Fame with one of the most decorated interior defensive linemen of the modern era, and a franchise that has had plenty of quality defensive linemen and happens to have their own Hall of Fame. That's very useful too. that is a ton on the line. Legacy means, I don't know what it means to you. It means a lot to me. I would assume it means a lot to these professional athletes. They tend to care deeply about it. The last name I will mention here is Keyshawn Nixon, because you bring in Nate Hobbs, you've got Javon Bullard. Can Keyshawn, we'll see what happens with Jair Alexander. But even if Jair Alexander stays, it is probably the final year for Jair Alexander. Keyshawn Nixon is playing for potentially a lot of money. And a starting spot in Green Bay or a starting spot elsewhere, if he comes out and he plays really well, with or without Jair Alexander on the squad, there is an opportunity to be either a key piece for the Packers or a high-priced free agent for someone else. Now, I don't know why, if he plays well, why that wouldn't happen. Given his contract situation, the Packers, it's not like they have to get rid of him in 2026. They don't. But so, there's a lot of money potentially on the line here. And I don't necessarily want to make this all about the money, but I think that is a good proxy for things on the line. Keyshawn Nixon is on the books in 2026 for $7 million. I feel like even if he's kind of a backup special teams kind of player, he's going to be there. But if they move on from Jair Alexander at any point, even if they feel like it's in 2026, and Keyshawn Nixon does get opportunities to play on the boundary and plays well, there could be an extension coming here for, $15, $18 million. That's on the table here. That's a lot of money. So he is certainly someone who I think has a lot on the line here as we move forward with the Packers, because if he does not have a home with Jair Alexander, if they mend that fence, Javon Bullard plays well, you've got Nate Hobbs. Do you need Keyshawn Nixon at $7 million a year? Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. So there's a lot to prove here coming up for him. I want to close the show with some people who I think Packer fans and maybe some non-Packer fans believe have a lot on the line here, but I personally do not. We'll talk about them next on Locked On Packers. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Let's start here. Matt LaFleur does not have anything to prove right now in terms of the risk. But I do want to flip this the other way. I am not sure there is a coach who would benefit more from a title this season than Matt LaFleur. Now, maybe you could say Kyle Shanahan because he's been so close. Maybe you could say Sean McVay because then he's got two. Maybe you could say John Harbaugh because then he's got two. Maybe you could say Sean McDermott because then, the pressure's off him a little bit in Buffalo. Matt LaFleur has a chance this year, and he's probably going to do it by Halloween, to win more games through the first 7 seasons as a head coach than Don Shula. Matt LaFleur is going to set the record for most wins in the first 7 seasons as a head coach. Now, Don Shula played fewer games. Matt LaFleur is in the 17-game era. It's still pretty impressive. 13 wins for 3 straight seasons, 11 wins last year. It's pretty good company. You won with Aaron Rodgers. You're winning with Jordan Love. You've been close to the NFC Championship game. You have shown in the playoffs you can match wits with Super Bowl champion coaches. By the way, I mentioned the playoff wins that the Packers have under Matt LaFleur, all against Super Bowl winning coaches. If he wins one, any of these lists, and I listened to these shows talking about, oh, Matt LaFleur, not a top 10 coach. But Mike Tomlin is, even though he hasn't won a playoff game since the last Obama administration. Matt LaFleur has a ton that he can gain. I don't think he has almost anything to lose. Now, if they win 7 games, yeah, the calls for his job are going to get louder. But if they win 10 or 11 games and lose in the first round of the playoffs again, depending on the fashion in which that happens, I don't know that it's going to really affect the way that Matt LaFleur gets viewed around the league yet. Because this is still a team that is not, by consensus, viewed as a true contender. They are not viewed by consensus as in the same class as Philadelphia, as in the same class as Detroit, even in the same class by some people as LA, which I think is crazy. I don't feel that way. I feel like there is more expectation. I think they can and will compete in the NFC. But I cannot attribute with any sort of regularity the failings in the postseason to Matt LaFleur. Now, do I think last year was his best coaching year? I think no. I think it was probably his either worst or second worst. But at the beginning of the year, you're going, we talked about it on the show, the way that they were able to win games with Malik Willis, to change the offense drastically on the fly for Malik Willis was incredible. I don't know how many coaches in the NFL would have gone 2-0 with Malik Willis, even against the Titans and the Colts. I just don't. Those teams won some games this year against starting NFL quarterbacks. So to do it with a backup, pretty impressive for Matt LaFleur. I think he stamps his ticket into the top 5, the top 6 NFL coaches with a Super Bowl championship. I think he probably vaults Mike McCarthy in the Packers' history of coaches, just given the sheer number. He already has more 13-win seasons than Mike McCarthy. If you add the Super Bowl in there, no, he doesn't have the Aaron Rodgers, the Jordan Love MVPs, but he has the same number of MVPs that Aaron Rodgers earned while Matt LaFleur was the coach as Mike McCarthy. So you've got to up the NFC North titles here. Presumably, if the Packers go win the Super Bowl, they'll probably have an NFC North championship in there. But remember, 2010, the Packers did not win the NFC North famously and still won the Super Bowl. So I think Matt LaFleur has a lot to gain, but I don't know that the downside here is much at all. And I think the same is true of Brian Gutekunst. I know that there are fans. I did the show yesterday about how Matt LaFleur can be the differentiator for this team. A lot of comments on YouTube of nah, this guy needs to be fired. Packer fans are still, I wouldn't say by and large, I don't think that is a majority of fans, but I think there is a very loud, very vociferous, very, very fiercely believing group of fans who think that he just isn't very good. And they want him fired. And look, I don't personally understand that, but that is a thing that exists. And that's true of Brian Gutekunst as well. They don't believe that he went all in, even though he did, in fact, go all in. I think there's even less on the line here for Brian Gutekunst, just because if they win a Super Bowl, he's not going to get credit. Matt LaFleur will. Fair or foul, I think that's just the reality of the situation. So I don't think there's really any risk for those guys. It is all upside to me. Now, flame out in the playoffs again, I do think, especially if it's against a team where if the Packers have a home playoff game, if they recreate 2021, where it's okay, they win 12 or 13 games this year, they look like the favorites, and then a team like, let's say, Minnesota, let's say Chicago, comes in and beats them at their place, yeah, okay, let's have a conversation then. But unless and until that happens, let's put that aside for the moment, because it's just not, that sort of catastrophe is difficult to predict at this moment. So yes, if they lose in some catastrophic fashion, let's have a conversation about the legacy and those kinds of things. We're not there. All right, back tomorrow. I hope everyone had a good Memorial Day. I hope everyone is excited to be back at work, if you are, in fact. Otherwise, we got a lot more here to come on Locked On Packers. as we move through the offseason. Follow me on the social medias, Peter_Bukowski on X and Instagram. Follow us on the podcast. We're all on the social medias on the podcast. Subscribe wherever you find podcasts. Subscribe over on our YouTube page so you can stay Locked On Packers.